We'd like to welcome all of you to the Board of Canvassers meeting. We are convened at 5:33 in the City Center Municipal Council chambers. We will begin this meeting with a roll call.
Cliff Strachan.
Brian Jones. Dave Sewell.
George Stewart.
Gary Winterton.
David Harding.
Kay Van Buren. George Handley.
Mayor Kafusi.
Wayne Parker.
And we will excuse Dave Connect, who has a family emergency right now. We'll begin with an opening prayer by Cliff Strachan and also the pledge.
Our Father in heaven, we thank thee that we can meet together with the Board of Canvassers to certify the election results today. We're grateful for the opportunity to serve the residents and businesses of Provo. We're grateful for all who turned out to vote in the election, and we're grateful, Father, for the freedom to choose and the freedom of electing that we have. May we always honor that in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
All right, please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Cliff. We will now move to the only item on the agenda, a resolution and finding certifying the results of the special bond election that was held. And we'll turn the time over to Amanda Erkenbrack for that.
Thank you, Council and Mayor. I'm happy to be here tonight. Bryce, if you'll go ahead and pull up the proceedings document. The other one, the one that's in on base. No, the resolution. And it's quite a long document, so I'll just give you a brief overview. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, and I'll stop at the really important stuff. Okay, so starting with page 1, that's just simply our roll call. Pages 2 and 3 discuss noticing. All 3 of these requirements were met and satisfied on Thursday, November 15th. Page 5 is the written minutes of the proceedings, which are required. Page 6 is where we will record the motion and vote. And then page 7 is the resolution. If you'll scroll down to section 1, Bryce. We've just updated these numbers. I'll go ahead and read section 1. There having been furnished to the board the election results of the special bond election held in the city on November 6, 2018, printed by the tabulating apparatus employed in conjunction therewith, it is hereby officially found, determined, and declared as to the proposition set forth in full in section 2 of this resolution, 23,312 votes were cast, including provisional ballots referenced below, of which 11,867 votes were in the affirmative, and 11,445 votes were in the negative. No voters were challenged, and therefore, no challenged voters were permitted to vote by provisional ballot. And of the 3,391 provisional ballots issued, 3,381 provisional ballots were valid and therefore counted. Any questions on that part? Bryce, would you go back to the other document that shows the votes, just to confirm? The one before that. So there's our official numbers. Any concerns, questions? Yes.
The 59.92%, that's of registered voters who voted for the bond.
Actually, that's who voted in the election.
In the election.
The actual percentage for the bond was 55.32,
Okay.
and that's based upon the 23,312.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and Bryce, if you'll go back to the document. So section 2 states that a majority of the qualified registered electors of the city voting on the following proposition have approved the issuance of bond described in such proposition.
Amanda, I should have grabbed you earlier, but of that 59% then, so we only had 3,000 or so that, or 4,000 that did not vote specifically on the bond.
It was, I have the number here somewhere, 1,940 that voted in the election but
But
not
not
on the
on,
bond.
so- oh, I was, okay, that helps me on something that I didn't understand. And how does our 60% compared to other years and with other counties?
So the last bond we had was the rec center bond in 2010. That year we had a 40.62% voter turnout, so this is higher, which is
And
great.
what, was that an off year also?
That was, yep, that was. So that's probably our best comparable, I would say. Compared to other cities, we are a little bit lower, but not by much. It's still really good.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then Bryce, if you'll go back to the document. On page 9, the resolution continues and it just describes the proposition. And it goes on to page 10 where the vote is recorded and the council chair and myself will sign. And then the last page is the certification. And that's it. Any other questions? Okay.
I guess can I smile? Am I allowed
I
to
think that's
smile as we
allowed
sit
now.
on this board?
Yes. We can all breathe a sigh of relief.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Dave?
Could we just briefly scroll through the voter turnout by precinct? I was just kind of interested in that.
If you're interested, both the high and low are actually in your area. Precinct 40 had the highest turnout, 77.03%, and that is the Edgemont neighborhood. And then our low was the Carterville neighborhood with 29.81.
And could you scroll up to the ones above that too? Okay, thank you.
Amanda, could you email us a copy of that?
I will.
Thank you.
Do you want all 3 documents?
Okay.
Certainly. Yep, I will do that.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you.
Gary, can I make a comment?
George?
I'd just like to congratulate the administration, Mayor Kafusi, Wayne, in particular the police and fire department for this bond passing. It would not have passed without the effort that was put up, particularly by the police and fire department, public safety. Congratulations, you deserve the win. It was a win for public safety. Without public safety on the bond, it wouldn't have passed. So thank you.
Thanks, George. We will now open this for public comment, if there's anyone that would like to comment on this. So seeing no public comment, we will bring it back to the Board of Canvassers. Is there any other discussion or comment that any of you would like to make at this time?
I'd like to make a comment. I've been debating on where the best place to do this. It's not specifically about this resolution, but it's about the bond passing. And though it doesn't look like we have many members of the general public in this meeting with us, I would like to speak to them and let them know that. Hopefully, I'm speaking for the whole council. We feel a large measure of trust has been placed in us to move this project forward. We take that seriously. It's humbling and staggering responsibility that we have, and while we're thrilled that it passed because the needs are so great, it is also it is humbling, the project that is before us, and just commit to the public that we will do our best to provide the best value for the tax money, their tax money that we will spend on this, and we'll do our best that this will position Provo very well for decades to come, and that we'll do our best to make as positive an outcome as possible with this trust that they've given us.
Thanks, Dave. Let's see. with that, Mr. Strachan, you have,
I'll let you know that this is not an implied motion, so you will have to have a mover and a seconder.
thank you very much. Appreciate that. Is there a motion to approve the findings and certify the results of the special bond election held in the city?
Can I ask a question first, Mr. Chair? I was just wondering about this section here that says ask about next steps.
We're coming to that. I move that down. I'd like to get the bond approved,
Okay.
and then we will definitely ask about that. Is there a motion?
I'll move it.
Thank you, George. I'm glad you did that. Thank you. And the second by the other George Stewart and George Handley. And any discussion on that motion? Now, it sounds like do we do it as a individual vote to certify this? As I look at the requirements here, state the name of the Board of Canvassers. We cannot call for a vote, or do we want to do it individually? Make a difference. Brian?
We've had the discussion before that state code actually requires a roll call vote. We have generally deemed that to be satisfied if the name of every person voting has been stated. So you can continue to do that the way that you've done it in past meetings, but it would certainly be appropriate to do it one by one if you'd like to.
You know, I think that this council has really worked hard, and I think it would be a privilege to allow them to have their name and vote taken. So we'll start with Mr. Sewell.
Aye.
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 Okay, so that vote passes unanimously with Mr. Connect excused. With that in mind, Mayor, would you like to make a statement, and then we'll turn the time over to Wayne for next steps, if it's okay.
Well, it's just a huge relief. I've been telling Wayne and everyone in my office, as we've been referring to it, don't say yes because we might jinx it. We don't want to jinx it. But now we can say yes. It's a huge relief. And I want to just read the statement I'm sending out just so that you're all aware of it. Because something I wanted to be sensitive to is even though the bond passed, there was still a large amount of people that voted against it. And I don't know if it's, what their reasoning was, but I want them to realize we understand that this wasn't a landslide and it was a tough fought bond and a tough decision for a lot of people. So this is just the statement I'm sending out. We are excited to see the response of Provo voters to the serious needs of our police, fire, and city facilities. We appreciate their trust in us and will work hard to develop a facility that will serve Provo residents for decades to come. We are committed to being cost-effective and careful with the tax dollars that are entrusted to us. We will seek citizen input as we move forward in designing the building and redeveloping the current site. I want to thank everyone who participated in this election. I know that for a lot of you, this was a difficult decision. Thank you for the time and energy each of you invested in this important matter of civic business. Although views differed on what we should do about the situation, I'm grateful that there was a nearly universal recognition of the city's needs. And I'm grateful that the election results mean we can now address those needs and prepare for Provo City's bright future. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Wayne, do you want to walk us through the next steps?
Yes, we'll spend some more time on this one as we get into details on the plans, but so we're kind of moving forward on several different fronts. First of all, we have initiated the process of acquiring the needed property that remains on this block that's not under our control. We are in that process currently. We've actually been working on that for several weeks and hope to bring that to conclusion fairly quickly. We have a request for proposals, which is in draft form and will be reviewed next week by an internal committee who will put the finishing touches on it, an RFP for architectural services. We'll actually do two of them as our plan, one on the fire station and one on the city facilities on this block. Again, The fire station is a little further along in its process, and we'd like to take advantage of moving that one forward fairly quickly. I think we could very, very easily be under contract in the spring for construction on that building, and so we'll get moving as quickly as we can.
Fire station on Canyon Road.
Station on Canyon Road, correct. Yeah, we'd like to get that one in and done fairly quickly. And then we do have a calendar that's kind of in draft form that takes us out for the next couple of years in terms of our process. So we'll get the RFP out, and within the next 2 weeks or so on architectural services. Hopefully ready to make a decision right around the first of the year on an architectural firm. We'll begin the preliminary work, and then we'll very quickly, by probably late January, early February, be out soliciting a general contractor as part of a construction manager general contractor program, CMGC, which we've used on several of our recent buildings, and which has been really cost-effective and helped speed the process along. So those are kind of our next steps. We recognize that we have a redevelopment opportunity on this block. We think it will be a little premature, given that we're probably 2.5 years out before we actually will be in a position to demolish the existing facilities and seriously consider redevelopment. But we are having a discussion about putting together a citizens committee to help us with a consultant to define what would be the ideal outcomes of a redevelopment project on this block, and to talk about some of the economics around parking and other things, and try to set some broad principles that we could bring back to the council for approval before we actually go out to solicit potential development partners on the block. And so we think we'll start that probably right after the first of the year, get through kind of a visioning and principle creating process, so that we're ready when we get about a year out from demolition, that we could actually get a developer on board and start looking at concrete proposals. So, but we'd like to kind of get at least the initial planning of that process underway fairly quickly. So that's kind of where our next steps are. And we'll again keep you posted as things develop, and as we refine the calendar a little bit more, we'll be back to you for some further input. So,
Thank you. With regard to the bond itself, we will have to use those funds by a certain time.
now we have about 3 years, is my recollection, in order to get from the time we sell the initial bonds until the time we run out of time to use it. So we are going to be in a bit of a time crunch to try to get that done. But we anticipate, I think, John, going to market early January to do the bonds. So again, we've discovered it's pretty futile to try to do this from a marketing perspective during the holidays. We just don't get the kind of attention from potential investors that we'd want to get during the holidays. And so I think we'll get all the work done and plan to go to market right after the first of the year, and strike at a good opportunity to take advantage of current interest rates. So that's the plan on the bond. So you'll be seeing us back with some specific details in the next couple of council meetings.
And probably for the next 3 years.
Yeah, you'll be hearing from us a lot. That's right.
That's wonderful. It's a great opportunity we have right now. Any other questions? Okay.
This it has to do with the bond, but it's more the process. Have we taken any steps to improve the voting process? I know 5 people that came to vote, turned around and left because it was a 4-hour wait. And so is that going to be improved? Is there something in place for that? Or
Amanda, do you want to address that one? That's a tricky one. And I think we do have our new county auditor coming to talk with the council. So if you have any input, I'm sure at some point we'll be able to, you can give it to Amanda or Amelia at some point.
Definitely, and I did speak with Cliff, and I understand that Amelia will be visiting with the council in an upcoming leadership meeting. I've also requested a meeting. I have met with her assistant, Justin Anderson, I believe is his name. She's already selected him, and he'll be appointed as her executive assistant. He met with the entire group of Central Utah recorders, and he was very responsive to our needs. He heard our concerns, and he understands that there are a lot of problems Just his willingness to listen was such a change that I'm optimistic. I have hope. So he's going to arrange a meeting for him and Amelia to come in. He'll meet with me and the administration as well as the council in your leadership meeting. So I think there's hope to address these things.
If any council members have concerns that they experienced or noticed or saw regarding the election, those things, would you please submit them to Cliff?
Email me.
And just so that those can be addressed and they can see what they can do about those problems.
John wanted to say something.
John? Yes.
While he's coming up, incidentally, the Central Utah City Recorders Group has offered to work with Amelia to improve the processes. And one of the things that they have offered in the past, and they're still offering, is they want to be involved in the election administration going forward, so that there's all this, these experts have done it that are there to help.
The other thing I was just going to add is that we've talked about it, and we have a meeting planned where we're going to kind of take some notes of what went well and what didn't, and really kind of try to have that outline, because what can happen if you wait a year or two, you might forget about some of those things. So we're going to get a document together, and we could even review that with the council as far as some observations and things so that we can learn from it. Because some of the things, a lot of things were out of our control, but we want to be able to just look at it and really analyze it so that when we look deeper that we can have those ideas fresh. So we have that planned.
Thank you, John. I think one of the things that we can say through the election is that vote by mail really helps get turnout. And I think that's something that we can look forward to in the future. But the process, I don't know that we'll ever be able to have election parties like they used to years ago and say, there's the winner because of the vote by mail. But that is an opportunity to get, I mean, I'm just grateful for the turnout that we get when we have that opportunity to vote by mail. I think it also gives us an opportunity for a more educated electorate. George?
Amanda, is there any reason that it couldn't have it postmarked by Saturday rather than Monday? Is there a possibility of changing that postmark date?
I would ask Brian that question.
I believe that would have to be changed by the state legislature.
But the legislature could do it.
I think they could do it, but it'd have to be a change from them.
And that may be a suggestion that we give down the road here. Anything else from council members, board of canvassers? If not,
could I just make one more
George,
comment about that?
yes.
I do think it's important that we, when things are put into place for the next election cycle, even though it's the county's responsibility, I wonder if, as a city, we can communicate to our constituents what the facilities will be, what the services will be, what our expectations for how it's going to look. Because what worries me is that the people who walked away from the booth this time around won't even bother coming back next time. But if they have some assurance that there's been some changes, there have been some changes and improvements, and that we're anticipating them to come, then I think it might work better. So even though it's not our responsibility to provide all that, when we know what it is, I think we as a city ought to make that information available.
I appreciate that, and I think that that's something that we can do as a council, is to look at the advertising that can go out around that and give the suggestions also to the county. But advertising will be critical, I think. Thank you, George. Any other discussion? Okay, if there's no objection, then we will now adjourn by unanimous consent as the Board of Canvassers. We do have one item of business. It's, Wayne, not business, it's just an update for council. So if we can close this meeting, and then just a personal item.